When America's future hangs in the balance, words become weapons. Tonight, a Marxist professor faces off against a MAGA firebrand in the debate that's dividing a nation. Theory versus reality, experience versus passion. Who truly speaks for America's future? The answer might surprise you. What happens when a Marxist scholar clashes with a MAGA star in an ideological battle shaping America? Can theory triumph over reality? As the sunset bathes the university campus in amber light, where stately oaks line red brick pathways swaying gently in the evening air. Lecture Hall 3 illuminates the dusk, its brightness piercing the gathering shadows. The atmosphere crackles with anticipation, like the heartbeats before a championship bout. Students, faculty, journalists, and observers pour in, their movements urgent, their expressions expectant. This isn't merely an academic discussion, it's a collision of worldviews. Before diving into the narrative, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe to catch our latest coverage. Inside the hall, the lights dim strategically, leaving only precise beams focused on center stage. There, two figures confront each other like protagonists in a modern political saga. On one side stands Professor Richard Wolff, silver-haired, with penetrating eyes and the composed demeanor of someone who has devoted decades to dissecting capitalism's framework. His hand rests confidently on a substantial collection of research, armed with meticulously crafted arguments. Opposite him is Karoline Leavitt, youthful, self-assured, and resolute. No prepared notes, no devices, just a single pen and a steely, ready to respond instinctively. She's not here to defend abstract theories. She's here to challenge, defying every preconception about her generation. What was anticipated as scholarly discourse rapidly transforms into one of the year's most significant ideological confrontations. The hall vibrates with tension as spotlights illuminate the contenders. The air feels charged with possibility. The moderator ascends the platform, a distinguished political science veteran, commanding in stature with a resonant, authoritative voice, each phrase delivered with documentary-like precision. Distinguished guests, he begins. In turbulent eras such as ours, the most vital element isn't agreement but the valor to engage in meaningful dialogue. That's precisely why we've orchestrated this extraordinary debate. Not to discover common ground, but to boldly confront fundamental differences. He steps aside, gesturing eloquently toward the main participants. We're privileged to welcome Professor Richard D. Wolff, an eminent economist, founder of Democracy at Work, and one of the most articulate critics of contemporary capitalism. Respectful applause ripples through the audience. And facing him, Karoline Leavitt, a prominent emerging voice of American conservatism, former White House spokesperson under President Donald Trump, and a figure revolutionizing how Generation Z perceives politics and influence. And now, he pauses deliberately, his tone deepening. The opening question, the foundation of tonight's entire exchange. If capitalism faces crisis, as numerous economists and social movements assert, is there an economic model robust enough to replace it? Professor Wolff, what alternative do you propose? And Miss Leavitt, should America alter course or remain steadfast on the path that established our superpower status? The moment seems suspended in time. Several students in the audience lean forward intently. Light catches Wolff's hand as he raises the microphone with deliberate precision. Wolff rises, microphone positioned perfectly, his voice resonating. Like a prophet, American capitalism is self-destructing, he declares, his incisive gaze sweeping across the audience. It generates obscene inequality, exploits working people, and steers the nation toward inevitable collapse. Trump's tariffs and budget reductions are mere illusions, concealing an economy in disarray. The solution lies in worker cooperatives, where employees own and govern businesses, eliminating the parasitic capitalist class. He references successful cooperatives in Germany, highlighting their equitability and efficiency compared to American corporations. Trump fails to comprehend this concept. He serves only the privileged elite. Wolff concludes with a confident smile flickering as he glances toward Leavitt. Murmurs ripple through the audience. Some students applaud, captivated by his scholarly reasoning. Trump supporters frown visibly, their attention shifting expectantly to Leavitt. She rises unhurriedly, her heels tapping softly against the floor, her voice cutting through the hall, with crystal clarity. "Professor, your ideals sound noble, but reality proves unforgiving." The room falls into perfect silence, all eyes riveted on her. Leavitt approaches the podium with natural confidence, her gestures conversational, as if personally connecting with every audience member. "Worker cooperatives? A commendable concept, but let's be forthright," she states, locking eyes with Wolff. "Can you identify even one cooperative in America functioning at scale, competing with Apple or General Motors? Just one concrete example." The challenge lands with precision, triggering surprised whispers throughout the audience. Wolff begins to respond, but merely offers, "Small cooperatives exist in America and Europe. It's about transforming societal mindset." His voice wavers, lacking its earlier conviction. Leavitt seizes the momentum, her tone resolute. "Theoretical mindsets don't cover monthly expenses, Professor. While you envision hypothetical cooperatives, Trump's tariffs have generated $50,000. New manufacturing positions. Dozens of factories have emerged across Ohio and Wisconsin. That's the tangible reality Americans require." She turns toward the audience, her voice softening strategically. "Consider this. Does a worker in Michigan prefer a theoretical cooperative or meaningful employment today?" Enthusiastic applause erupts, spreading from Trump supporters to previously neutral attendees. Wolff attempts to counter, "These jobs lack sustainability. Capitalism will ultimately collapse under its inherent greed." But Leavitt interjects, her manner reminiscent of a seasoned prosecutor. "Unsustainable? Then explain why billions in Japanese and Canadian investment are flooding into American manufacturing. Does that indicate collapse?" The audience responds with appreciative laughter. Some students exchange knowing glances, recognizing Wolff's weakening position. A group in the back row whispers, "She's right. Cooperatives sound idealistic, but how do they function practically?" Wolff regains composure, reiterating that cooperatives require development time and governmental support. He adjusts his glasses, speaking slightly hastily, as if desperately preserving his argument. Yet the more he elaborates, the more impractical his concepts appear. Leavitt delivers her decisive argument. "Professor, if cooperatives represent the future, why hasn't a single major enterprise adopted them? Trump delivers employment and prosperity today, while you await an unrealized dream." She takes her seat, expression composed yet triumphant. Wolff, clutching the microphone, tightly remains silent, quietly resuming his seat, subtle discomfort evident in his expression. His gaze avoids the audience entirely. The prestigious lecture hall remains brilliantly illuminated, the atmosphere more electrified than ever following the initial debate round. The audience stirs with excitement. Students remain attentive. Journalists and supporters from both sides buzz about Karoline Leavitt's effective challenge to Wolff regarding cooperative economics. The moderator returns to center stage, soft lighting accentuating his experienced features. He smiles thoughtfully, his measured, commanding voice capturing the room's complete attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, the exchange we just witnessed regarding the cooperative model has revealed the intense debates surrounding production reorganization, ownership structures, control mechanisms, and benefit distribution. These extend beyond academic theory into profoundly practical concerns: employment, opportunities, compensation levels, and everyday realities for millions of workers. In our globalized economy where production decisions transcend national boundaries, a critical question emerges. How can economies simultaneously protect domestic workers while maintaining international competitiveness? This introduces the tariff question. Controversial yet undeniable, tariffs form a cornerstone of former President Donald Trump's economic doctrine. Tariffs transcend mere percentages. They embody a philosophy of economic sovereignty, determining priorities within globalization. Professor Wolff, as an economist analyzing policy impacts, How do you evaluate tariffs' effects on American economic health and its workforce? Leavitt, from a pragmatic policy perspective, explain why conservatives consistently view tariffs as effective instruments for safeguarding national interests. Wolff stands assertively, his posture unwavering, eyes blazing. With scholarly conviction, his voice resonates through the hall, carrying decades of critical analysis. The tariffs implemented under Trump represent complete economic failure by every metric. He raises his hand emphatically, punctuating each point. They were marketed as protection for American workers. But what reality emerged? Essential products, from electronics to foodstuffs, experienced dramatic price increases. And who bears this burden? Not China, not Mexico, but American consumers, particularly working-class citizens. Tariffs represent an imperfect solution, but they constitute a declaration. America will no longer surrender its manufacturing capacity to foreign interests. She gestures expressively, as if mapping economic territories. The result? Over $12 billion in international corporate investments flowing into Michigan, Tennessee, regions previously struggling with unemployment. We've established more than 60,000 new positions within just 24 months. She faces Wolff directly, her gaze penetrating. You claim factories aren't materializing? I invite you to visit Indiana's manufacturing facilities during shift changes. Workers who now support families through American manufacturing employment. Thunderous applause erupts, prominently from Trump supporters section. Several rise to express approval. Cameras capture Leavitt's composed response. Wolff attempts intervention, his tone sharpening. These statistics lack sustainability. Tariffs potentially devastate purchasing power, triggering economic chain reactions. But Leavitt raises her hand, interrupting with unwavering confidence. Then explain America's 4% economic growth compared to Europe's mere 1%? She addresses the audience comprehensively, her gaze sweeping across all sections. Tariffs haven't merely preserved steel and automotive industries. They've communicated a message. Access to American markets requires American investment. She pauses momentarily before concluding decisively. Ask workers in Ohio. Do they prefer tariffs maintaining their livelihoods or watching China's continued market domination? Silence envelops the hall briefly, before exploding into resounding approval. Support extends beyond conservative sections. Previously hesitant moderates begin nodding thoughtfully. Applause continues, some neutral students acknowledging her concrete evidence. Wolff responds urgently. You're oversimplifying complex economics. Tariffs accelerate inflation, disproportionately harming lower-income populations. Leavitt interrupts confidently, her voice energized. Inflation presents challenges, but what alternative do you propose? Will hypothetical cooperatives reduce consumer prices? Trump reduced taxation, helping workers retain earnings. Average wages increased 3%. She emphasizes pointedly. Professor, can you provide empirical evidence demonstrating superior outcomes from your theoretical model? The audience laughs appreciatively, students whispering, she's winning again. Wolff attempts response but merely repeats warnings about tariff-induced instability. Leavitt delivers her conclusive argument. Instability, then explain Hyundai's new Kentucky facilities. Trump's tariffs have compelled global corporations to invest domestically, while you offer only theoretical cautions. Wolff returns to his seat, gripping the microphone silently, staring downward. Wolff rises again, expression stern and self-assured. His voice projects powerfully, resolute and unwavering. The American economy approaches profound crisis, he states emphatically, gesturing to emphasize each point. Trump's tariff policies, combined with unchecked governmental expenditure, intensify inflation, escalate living expenses, and diminish workers' purchasing capacity. Consumer purchasing capacity erodes. Industries struggle against global competition, and national debt increases exponentially. My forecast indicates inflation reaching 7%, unemployment potentially rising to 4% next year. Trump labels this rebuilding, but in reality, it charts a course toward inevitable recession. He pauses strategically, surveying the audience before focusing on Leavitt, seemingly anticipating her reaction. Wolff's assertions strike like strategic missiles targeting his opponent, heightening the palpable tension. Leavitt rises immediately, her penetrating gaze fixed on Wolff. She responds without hesitation, projecting undiminished conviction. "Professor, your predictions sound alarming but fail to reflect Americans' lived experiences. If the economy truly approaches recession, explain our 4% growth while Europe stagnates at 1%? Leavitt advances to the stage's edge, utterly fearless. She continues. President Trump's comprehensive approach from tariff implementation to reducing business expenses has attracted unprecedented investment. Consider Ford's recent $2 billion Ohio facility creating 8,000 new positions in just 24 months. She pauses momentarily, her unwavering gaze locked on Wolff. Professor, continue predicting catastrophe if you wish, but how do you explain global corporations flocking to American shores? How do you account for this phenomenon? Leavitt's challenge resonates like a precise counterstrike, intensifying the electric atmosphere. Audience members exchange comments, some applauding softly, particularly among Trump supporters. Wolff hesitates visibly, merely staring at Leavitt with evident tension, his hand gripping the microphone tightly. He resumes his seat without response, creating a charged silence between them. The entire hall falls quiet. All attention focuses on both speakers. Leavitt maintains her position, projecting confidence, her gaze steady as if anticipating further exchange. The audience responds enthusiastically, especially Trump's supporters. Wolff attempts interruption. These figures represent temporary aberrations. Inflation will ultimately overwhelm economic gains. But Leavitt raises her hand decisively, her voice cutting. Temporary? Explain American unemployment at historic 3% lows. Trump established conditions fostering business prosperity, while you offer merely unsubstantiated prophecies. She addresses the audience directly. Consider a Wisconsin. Family, do they benefit from recession warnings or from newly secured employment? Wolff responds tensely, urgently. You're evading fundamental issues. Leavitt counters. Inflation crushes workers, harming vulnerable populations disproportionately. The audience murmurs, anticipating her response, but she continues swiftly and passionately. Inflation represents a global challenge, Professor, not uniquely American. But Trump has responded decisively. Tax reductions allow workers greater earnings retention, and strategic trade agreements, particularly with Japan, have increased American exports by 15%. She turns toward Wolff, her expression radiating absolute confidence, her tone challenging. What solution do you propose beyond continuous catastrophic predictions? The audience absorbs the charged atmosphere, every gaze fixed on both participants, awaiting the next exchange. At this critical moment, the moderator reclaims the stage, his presence gentle yet authoritative, redirecting attention. Thank you, Professor Wolff and Miss Leavitt, for your incisive analysis regarding economic models, tariff impacts, and recession risks. As Americans confront questions about their nation's global position, we must address an overarching concern. Is America maintaining its preeminence or facing potential decline? Professor Wolff, how would you assess America's international standing under Trump's governance? Miss Leavitt, what perspective do you offer? Wolff stands imposingly, his voice deep and resonant. America enters imperial decline, he asserts, his expression glacial, his gestures mapping an inevitable historical trajectory comparable to Roman or Ottoman imperial collapses. America's dominance deteriorates progressively. Trump's tariffs, excessive military expenditure, and ineffective diplomatic strategies accelerate this process. Allies grow increasingly alienated, while China and Russia emerge as ascending powers, and the American economy lacks sufficient strength for continued global leadership. He snaps his fingers deliberately, emphasizing statistical evidence. China will surpass American GDP within the coming decade. Trump promotes America First rhetoric, but obscures fundamental truth. The American empire approaches collapse. Wolff confronts Leavitt directly, his expression challenging. How will you explain this decline? His tone combines authority with provocation, as if drawing everyone present into critical debate. The audience remains silent, tension palpable. Both figures await the opponent's response, the outcome impossible to predict. Leavitt rises, her voice projecting calm, magnetic authority. Professor, your portrayal appears convincing only through historical abstraction, not contemporary reality. The room falls completely silent, all attention focused on her. Leavitt approaches. The audience, her voice weaving compelling narrative. If America truly declines, why does our $27 trillion GDP still exceed China's $20 trillion? She inquires, maintaining direct eye contact with Wolff. Trump's comprehensive policies, from tariff implementation to trade renegotiation, have reinforced America's global position. Within 2 years, our South Korean trade agreement increased American exports by 15%, generating billions in revenue. She pauses momentarily, her voice softening strategically. Professor, you claim alienated allies, then explain NATO's continued reliance on American security guarantees? Enthusiastic applause erupts throughout the hall, particularly among Trump supporters. Wolff, unable to remain silent, attempts interruption. Your statistical evidence merely disguises America's fundamental weakening. China surpasses our technological capacity and global influence. Leavitt responds immediately, raising her hand to intercept his argument. Her voice remains controlled, but razor-sharp. Weakening? Then explain why global technology leaders like Apple and Microsoft remain American corporations while Trump compels international investment in domestic markets. Your perspective remains anchored in historical patterns, overlooking emerging realities. She addresses the audience directly, her expression radiating absolute conviction. Consider your position as students here. Do you envision contributing to an America that leads globally or one preoccupied with decline narratives? The room explodes with enthusiasm. Applause and measured reactions fill the space. Students increasingly nod, clearly influenced by Leavitt's optimistic vision and dynamic presentation. Wolff, perceiving the audience's powerful response, hastily counters, his delivery slightly pressured. You're disregarding a fundamental reality. America's military expenditure remains unsustainable long-term. Leavitt refuses him further opportunity. She stands confidently, her voice brimming with determination and purpose. Military investment ensures global stability and security, Professor. America remains the sole nation capable of effective global leadership, not China or any alternative power. What about your position? Do you offer constructive solutions or merely historical comparisons to fallen Roman civilization? She confronts Wolff directly, her tone icy. Can you provide empirical evidence demonstrating China's supposed global leadership supremacy? Leavitt's gaze cuts like precision steel, each statement calculated, leaving Wolff without effective counterargument. As final applause echoes throughout the hall, stage illumination dims gradually, though the electrified atmosphere persists. The high audience, engaged students, working journalists, Trump advocates, and Wolff supporters, remains standing, participating in animated discussions about the just concluded debate. The venue transforms into a nucleus of reactions where emotions, perspectives, and media documentation intertwine, reflecting the immediate impact of the confrontation between Karoline Leavitt and Richard Wolff. The moderator returns to center stage, hall lights blazing, tension lingering palpably. He inhales deeply, his measured, resonant voice carrying throughout the space. From our proceedings today, we've witnessed profound perspectives regarding American economic structure, tariff implementation, and global positioning. Thank you, Professor Wolff and Miss Leavitt, for sharing powerful insights without avoiding direct confrontation. While perspectives differ significantly, what matters ultimately is that we've heard, processed, and contemplated choices that may determine our collective future. He pauses briefly, surveying the silent, attentive audience. We've encountered opposing viewpoints, yet absolute correctness remains elusive. The reality is that we navigate an era where every economic, political, and social decision creates far-reaching consequences. Whatever transpires, one certainty remains. Today's choices will shape this nation's trajectory. The moderator offers a subtle smile, his expression conveying respect for both perspectives. Thank you again to Professor Wolff and Miss Leavitt. Thank you to our audience for active participation and thoughtful engagement. Continue thinking, debating, and ultimately acting. This discussion transcends immediate concerns. It addresses the future we collectively create. He steps back, his voice resonating throughout the venue. Thank you, and join us for future dialogues. The stage lights diminish gradually, and the hall returns to everyday ambiance. Throughout the auditorium, students gather in clusters, debating passionately. A female student, smartphone in hand, addresses her companion. Leavitt demonstrated overwhelming effectiveness. She transformed Wolff's arguments into abstract theory. Her friend nods agreement, sharing video with the caption, "Leavitt redefines MAGA movement." Elsewhere, students supporting Leavitt discuss quietly. The professor correctly identifies inequality issues, but Leavitt presented verifiable statistics. This warrants further investigation. These conversations, interspersed with laughter and disagreements, reflect polarization while stimulating critical thinking, the panel's fundamental purpose. Journalists representing major outlets, CNN, Fox News, and independent platforms, navigate efficiently, equipment prepared. A Fox News correspondent interviews a Trump supporter. Leavitt represents MAGA's emerging leadership. She demonstrated to Wolff that practical reality supersedes theoretical constructs. Meanwhile, a CNN journalist questions a student, "Your assessment of Leavitt's counter-arguments." The response follows, "Her reasoning impressed me, though Wolff raised valid inflation concerns." These interviews, conducted directly on site, transmit immediately to newsrooms, scheduled for tonight's social media broadcast. The atmosphere intensifies further. Leavitt's conclusive statement, Wolff claims, "America declines while $27 trillion GDP indicates otherwise," exceeds 1 million views, generating young viewer commentary. Leavitt dominates debate. Wolff should reconsider his approach. Some Wolff supporters object, claiming Leavitt merely echoes MAGA rhetoric. Wolff correctly addresses inequality, but Leavitt's supportive wave prevails, becoming trending content. Brief segments from her cooperative challenge to imperial decline rebuttal circulate extensively, establishing her as social media's focal point. Backstage, Leavitt confers briefly with associates, monitoring social media reaction. An assistant whispers, "You're trending universally." Leavitt acknowledges this while maintaining humility, though her expression reveals satisfaction. She responds to an independent journalist, "My purpose was defending truth, not personal confrontation." Her concise yet impactful statement records instantly, achieving viral status, consolidating her emerging MAGA leadership image. Wolff across the hall faces journalistic inquiry. He declines extended interviews, stating briefly, "Leavitt demonstrates enthusiasm but lacks comprehensive understanding." He departs quickly, followed by several Marxist students, their expressions revealing disappointment. A journalist observes, Wolff's departure audience diminished compared to his arrival. The contrast between participants becomes evident backstage, where audience and media clearly favor Leavitt's perspective. Among attendees, a university economics professor, standing with students, comments, "Leavitt effectively challenged Wolff's abstract theories, while Wolff compelled inequality consideration. Both contribute value." This balanced assessment, though equitable, cannot deny Leavitt's impact. Some students begin researching her content, downloading debate segments for Instagram and Snapchat sharing, transforming Leavitt into a young MAGA generation icon. Media reaction extends beyond the venue. Major outlets publish online analyses. Fox News headlines: Leavitt overwhelms Wolff in university confrontation, while CNN, maintaining neutrality, publishes Leavitt versus Wolff debate intensifies American economic discussion. Smaller publications like Breitbart and Jacobin offer contrasting perspectives, but consensus emerges. Leavitt established dominance according to freelance analysis. Leavitt transcended debate. She commanded the stage. The post generates thousands of shares, reinforcing Leavitt's prominence. As audience members gradually disperse, discussions continue energetically. One student tells a friend, "Despite opposing Trump, Leavitt made me reconsider tariff implications." This comment reflects Leavitt's effectiveness, persuading not merely Trump supporters but neutral observers. Meanwhile, a Wolff supporter group gathers separately, analyzing potential stronger counter-arguments, though their conviction sounds weakened. The university hall's backstage becomes a reflection of panel polarization and energy. Leavitt, with Gen Z approach and precise rebuttals, not only dominated the debate, but shaped media narrative. Wolff, retaining some supporters, departs facing questions about Marxist theory's relevance in an environment demanding practicality. As venue illumination fades, Leavitt's content continues spreading, establishing her as a focal point for younger generations seeking America's future direction. The next day, reverberations from the prestigious University Hall panel continue throughout media environments. Social media segments and discussions regarding Karoline Leavitt and Richard Wolff's confrontation continue attracting millions of viewers, transforming the debate into national conversation. Meanwhile, Wolff, though maintaining some advocates, confronts questions about Marxist theory's practical application in contemporary contexts. Leavitt, returning to Washington headquarters, enters a dynamic environment with compressed scheduling. Communications flood from major media sources including Fox News, Newsmax, and even balanced publications like The Hill, requesting exclusive interviews. A Breitbart article declares her MAGA's emergent representative, highlighting her transformation of Wolff's arguments into theoretical abstractions. A college student, reviewing debate footage, posts on Instagram, "Leavitt inspires political engagement." The statement generates thousands of endorsements, reflecting her influence among younger demographics. Leavitt's media strategists capitalize immediately, organizing appearances and emphasizing her statistical references from employment creation to GDP measurements, establishing her image as young, practical, and fearless political leadership. The university economics students organize focused discussion inspired by the panel. One participant states, "Leavitt demonstrated Trump's policies transcend rhetoric. They produce measurable outcomes." Another, though not supporting Trump, admits, "She compelled me to re-examine tariff and investment statistics." Faculty, noticing student engagement, incorporate debate content into instruction, utilizing Leavitt's presentations to examine practical economics versus theoretical constructs. One professor observes, "Leavitt has revitalized economic policy, dialogue within academic environments." Meanwhile, Wolff returns to New York operations, seated amid extensive academic references. He examines his laptop, reviewing Jacobin articles and Marxist theoretical discussions, forums where supporters defend his position. One entry states, "Wolff correctly identified inequality, though Leavitt dominated through presentation style." Wolff, holding coffee, quietly reviews debate footage. He documents observations, considering whether his approach proved excessively academic, insufficiently relatable for younger audiences. A colleague offers reassurance. "Your presentation succeeded, though Leavitt operated within social media parameters." Wolff acknowledges this, though his expression reveals concern. He begins drafting clarification regarding cooperatives and imperial decline, hoping to restore supporter confidence. Television networks feature the debate prominently. Fox News hosts a MAGA commentator praising Leavitt, observing she demonstrated to younger generations that politics requires facts and action rather than complexity. CNN, during analytical programming, features a neutral economist noting Leavitt's victory through specific evidence, while acknowledging Wolff raised significant, long-term considerations. Articles appearing on Politico and The Atlantic identify Leavitt as emerging American political leadership, while progressive publications like The Nation defend Wolff. Arguing style prevailed over substance. Nevertheless, these analyses acknowledge Leavitt's media narrative dominance. The debate, initially academic exercise, becomes cultural phenomenon. Leavitt, through Gen Z presentation and practical argumentation, not only demonstrated but shaped youth political perception. Wolff, though overshadowed, establishes lingering questions regarding inequality and American trajectory that younger audiences continue examining. As articles, video segments, and discussions proliferate, the panel fulfills its mission, stimulating critical analysis and inspiring emerging generations. The panel's aftermath at the prestigious University Hall transcends viral content or trending social media. 1 week following the event, the narrative of Karoline Leavitt and Richard Wolff's confrontation has exceeded academic debate boundaries, becoming inspirational catalyst for broader discussions regarding America's trajectory. From university lecture halls to online forums, from cafes to family environments, the ideas sparked during the panel continue influencing perceptions about economics, politics, and America's global position. Leavitt, now recognized across media platforms, leverages momentum, reinforcing her message. During Newsmax's interview, she appears composed, her voice measured yet passionate. The panel represented ideological clarity, she states, demonstrating America rebuilds through practical action, rather than abstract theory. She emphasizes her vision of American leadership through employment, investment, and confidence. The interview circulates extensively through social media, generating young viewer commentary. Leavitt correctly identifies action over rhetoric. A college student inspired by her perspective posts on Instagram, aspiring to Leavitt's approach. Bold and practical, the statement generates thousands of endorsements, reflecting her demographic influence. Student organizations coordinate future dialogue events. Inspired by the debate, an economics student previously aligned with Wolff speaks. At the initial session, the panel demonstrated theory requires practical application. Inequality concerns remain valid, but implementation demands feasibility. Another student supporting Trump states Leavitt reinforced confidence in American leadership potential. Faculty, recognizing student enthusiasm, incorporate panel themes from tariffs to global positioning into instruction, encouraging analytical thinking. An economics professor notes, the debate has ignited intellectual curiosity among younger demographics, representing ultimate success. Wolff, meanwhile, reflects and redirects in New York. During online lectures shared with Marxist audience, the panel reinforced communication adaptation requirements. He acknowledges Leavitt's effectiveness connecting with younger audiences, but emphasizes his vision of equitable America, prioritizing worker representation. The lecture attracts thousands of viewers, primarily supporters, though incomparable to Leavitt's influence. A viewer comments, Wolff continues addressing inequality but requires Leavitt's communication approach. Wolff reviews this observation, documenting it, determined to refine future presentations. Though concluded, the panel conveys powerful message. Dialogue, however intense, ignites thought and action. Leavitt, through practical approach, has inspired younger generations believing in concrete implementation. The narrative of Karoline Leavitt and Richard Wolff vividly reflects America's current political and economic polarization, where opposing perspectives from Leavitt's pragmatic capitalism to Wolff's Marxist analysis collide publicly. Leavitt, employing Gen Z dynamics, references concrete evidence including employment statistics and GDP measurements defending Trump's policies, while Wolff emphasizes inequality and capitalism's potential decline. Viral social media distribution highlights its influence shaping public opinion, particularly among younger Americans, where brief segments and posts transform academic debate into cultural phenomenon. Diverse audience reactions, from students examining inequality to MAGA supporters celebrating, mirror how contemporary Americans engage politically, intensely polarized yet seeking dialogue. The lesson demonstrates that within polarized American society, individuals must develop listening and evidence-based debate skills. As Leavitt and Wolff, despite differences, stimulated critical analysis, practical application requires specific knowledge like Leavitt's employment statistics while presenting perspectives clearly and relatably, as she connected with younger audiences. Simultaneously, remain receptive to opposing viewpoints, as Wolff reflected, improving communication. Rather than social media argumentation, participate in community forums, ask questions, and pursue practical solutions addressing inflation or inequality. Through these approaches, you contribute not merely to dialogue, but help construct stronger America reflecting the panel's spirit. Subscribe to our channel following vibrant debates like Leavitt and Wolff. Thank you for watching. Join us next time exploring America's trajectory.